Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining and welcome to this webinar dedicated to the CDO's analytic dilemma. Today, we will be discussing how to combine a good user experience in data exploitation and having the most agile data team possible while keeping your data budget under control. As a reminder, this webinar is recorded and a video will be shared with each and every one of you. If you have any questions, by the way, feel free to post them in the Zoom chat and we'll make sure to answer all of them at the end of the presentation. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself and the speaker of the day. I'm Juliette, Indexcima's US Marketing Manager based in New York City. And today's webinar will be hosted by the Vice President of the US Operations of Indexima, Damien Mahuzier. Hello, Damien.
Hi, Juliette.
Damien has been working for years with CDOs and he's now leading Indexcima's effort in the US. So let's go over the agenda of this webinar, shall we? We will first start with a brief overview of the data situation within companies. We will then be discussing the CDO's dilemma. Why is it so complicated in this era of exploiting data volumes to guarantee internal user satisfaction and remain agile in the provision of data without increasing your cost? We'll also look at the different options that are available to CDOs and the benefits and constraints of implementing each of them. And finally, Damien will share his recommendations to obtain a data platform that exceeds all expectations. Damien, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Juliette, and welcome everybody. So as Juliette mentioned, let's start this webinar by taking a closer look at the data situation within companies. I'd like to start with sharing three major trends on which we will take the time to dive a bit deeper. The first trend, and it's a surprise to no one, is that data volume is exploding worldwide. In an increasingly interconnected world, IoT, digitization, and the development of 5G are all factors that contribute to this phenomenon. The second trend is the increasing demand for access to data by a non-specialist population. And the third trend is a general move to the cloud. This concerns the whole of the company's information system and therefore also the data platform. So let's dive deeper into our first trend, the data explosion. Data is exploding so much that more than 90% of the world's data has been generated in the last 5 years. And the trend is accelerating. In 2020, there were 50 zettabytes of data in the world. And this figure is expected to increase threefold to 163 zetta by 2025. We can barely grasp how much 1 zetta is, so it's really hard to imagine the colossal mass that 163 zetta represents. At the same time, what's interesting to notice is that companies are struggling to analyze their data at scale. One figure shows that only 12% of company data is used to make decisions. 12%. This means that a significant part of the value of the data is never exploited. And we will see why later. Moving on to our second trend, the data access, and more especially, the current desire for broader and frictionless data access. No more than 15 years ago, access to data was reserved for top management and strategic decision-making. Data experts would typically do the analysis work and pass on the results to the decision makers. This time is over, and the dynamic has completely changed in the last few years. Data is now also used to make operational decisions, and the way it is exploited has changed from an asynchronous mode to self-service access for the largest number of people. So there are therefore more data consumers within companies and a desire to access data more quickly. That's for our second trend. The third trend that is common to all enterprise information systems is the migration of data to the cloud. The main benefits of this migration are to reduce infrastructure costs and to provide elasticity in the ability to make storage and computing servers available. So in short, it has allowed to automate the data ops tasks. So now that we have set the ground for today's discussion, let's see what are the impacts of data explosion, high consumer demand, and IS migration to the cloud on the challenges and operational reality of the CDO. So let's start with the CDO challenges. Beyond the definition of the data strategy, three main challenges stand out. The first one is to build or maintain an operational data platform that meets your business challenges, your business team's challenges. The second one is to ensure that the data teams deliver data projects on time while respecting and controlling your data budget. So it is clear that the CDO must operate within a very classic framework where the challenge is to build an ROI while respecting financial, budgetary, and temporal constraints. So these were the high-level objectives. From an operational point of view, these objectives can be representing according to three well-defined axes, which by their very nature tend to oppose each other. We need a little spicing up from time to time, otherwise it's too easy. So let's have a look at them. The first axis is the user experience. The CDO's goal is to offer a pleasant data consumption experience. So for example, when a user exploits data in Tableau, we can look at the dashboard's loading time. There is no absolute metric here, but the goal is to display the data quickly. So for some companies, quickly will mean 30 seconds, for others, maybe 1 second. The second axis is agility. This is the ability to easily and instantly make data available to any user in the company. So the more simple and automated the data pipeline is, the more the CDO fulfills its agility objective. And finally, the last axis is pretty obvious: cost control. How much does it cost me as a CDO to ensure that my user experience and agility are top-notch? If the CDO can ensure that these three axes are optimized, then he has done his job right. So now let's see how the CDO and its teams are equipped to meet these challenges. In general, companies have at least one storage tool, either a data lake or a data warehouse. It doesn't really matter, where it is possible to store petabytes of data very easily. And they also have one or multiple data visualization tools that allow to create eloquent dashboards quickly. So this type of architecture, I'm sure you're all familiar with it, that's super basic, usually performs well when the overall data volume of the company is reasonable. But with time, when data volume grows and data use cases expand, it inevitably leads to a degradation of service for the end user. And at this time, when this is done, it is not possible to visualize data easily anymore. So for example, a dashboard that was used to load in 1 second, now with much more data may load in 1 minute. And so as we can see, this hits the tip of the user experience triangle. And from a business perspective, this is not satisfactory because it means every time someone clicks on a dashboard, they have to wait. So we will spend the rest of this webinar trying to look at the different options that are available to the CDO to solve this problem. And I'm not spoiling anything, but there are 3 options, and we're going to take a look at them one by one. The first option to offer a great user experience when your data volume is growing is to limit the usage. So this is done more or less naturally or more or less brutally. And at this time, you're probably wondering, why is this guy using a car animation at this point? It's actually because it's also linked to a limitation of usage. When London decided to restrict the access to its city center only to taxis and public transportations. Cars were not allowed anymore. So coming back to data limitation of usage, what does it mean in real life? It means limiting the depth of analysis or allowing the analysis only on a limited time frame. Let's take an example that everyone will understand to make it more clear. Let's say we are a retail company. Limiting the usage of data would mean something like this. Only allow, for example, the analysis of product sales at the product category level, rather than at the product reference level. Or only allow the analysis of the store revenue at the regional level, rather than store by store. Or only allow for analysis over 1 month instead of multiple years. So these are the type of restrictions that can be applied. And good news, they do solve the dilemma. But the problem is, this is a very reductive approach that will never meet your business team's expectations, and even less those of a data-driven company. So at the end of the day, limiting the usage is not a sustainable option to solve the dilemma. The second option available to the CDO to bring back a great user experience is to increase its computing power to process data faster. Let's see what it means. For example, if you are using Snowflake, it means raising the size of your Snowflake cluster. If you are using Oracle, it means upgrading your licenses. And if you're using a data lake, that means increasing the power of your data lake engine. So you guessed it. In this option, we apply the brute force method, which is something that can work in the short term. But given the continuous growth of data, this is not a sustainable way to solve the problem, because you're not going to increase the size of your clusters or buy new licenses every 6 months to keep up with your growing amount of data. And the reason behind this is very simple. It is budgetary. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So this is not a great option either. And that leads us to our third and final option, which is to call on your data engineering teams for help. So bring in the army, like these stormtroopers from Star Wars. What does it really mean, and what do your data engineers do when you call them for help? They usually create a data mart layer between your data sources and your database tools in order to restore good performances. It often looks like the best way to solve the dilemma. Actually, it's a way that is used by a lot of companies. But is it actually that good? What does it really mean? It means first introducing manual complexity in a pipeline that aims to be automated. So when you do so, it is no longer possible to guarantee the ability to easily and instantly make data available to any user. Because now your data must go through this pipeline that involves business and IT back and forth, and that often takes several weeks, sometimes even several months. And it also means building and maintaining this layer manually. And since you have to staff your data engineers on this type of tasks, and since you pay them, this is something that costs you money. So the result is pretty simple. Your data pipeline, when you bring in your data engineering team, usually is no longer agile. Opting for this solution prevents you from working agilely. And when you do so, you can say goodbye to your dreams of analytical self-service. This option also requires a lot of human resources, which consumes your budget on pretty low value tasks. So we just looked at the 3 options available to the CDO to solve the dilemma, and we saw that none of them is really satisfactory. In the first case, it is not satisfactory for the business team. In the second case, it is far too expensive to implement. And in the third case, your organization loses its agility and it costs you money. So solving this dilemma is not something easy, because whatever choice you make, you have to compromise on something. So now I'd like each of you to to take a few seconds to think about the potential way to process big data while answering this dilemma. And if you have an idea, by the way, feel free to post it in the chat. I'll wait for a few minutes to see if we have someone coming with genius idea. But yeah, I don't see anything for now, so I'll just keep going. Okay. At Indexima, this is ultimately our goal: to make use of a platform that enables automatic analysis of big data. Our mission is to give agility to your data pipeline while warranting exceptional performances with respect to your budgets, and ultimately giving you access to a beautiful and perfect analytical triangle. So let's have a look at where Indexima stands in the data ecosystems and in all the tools that you guys are. Indexima stands in between your data sources and your data visualization tools and acts as the single access point to all your data. It basically allows your end users to conduct data analysis easily and to avoid all different types of data copies. It also leverages advanced indexing technology to process big data live without any human intervention. And it's also a software that integrates perfectly into your information system with rights and management security. With rights and security management, yeah, okay. And all of this either in an on-prem architecture or in the cloud. So now let's take a look at the benefits of Indexima, of this acceleration and federation layer. The benefits are very tangible. First of all, customer satisfaction. Your users will be able to interact with their data in self-service mode with response times of less than a second, regardless of the data volume. So that's a huge upgrade. Less than a second, no matter the data volume. The second benefit, agility. The data team that drives the data platform will be able to grant access to all the company's data instantly to any type of user. In other words, your data pipeline is automated. And it's also cost effective. Thanks to Indexima, you can save up to 20% of the cost related to your data management in terms of infrastructure, software, and human resources. Sorry. And on top of that, you can also allow your data engineers to free themselves from time-consuming and low-value added tasks, such as creating and maintaining a layer of data frame. So let's take a look at something more concrete and two different client use cases. So the first one, this is a use case from a service company that provides SKU tracking analysis for FMCG businesses. The company provides to its clients more than 20 Tableau dashboards to help them maximize sales, improve product availability, and optimize their supply chain, and also better collaborate with their retailers. More than 1,500 FMCG businesses use the service, and around 300,000 queries are generated every day. And all these queries are generated on top of a 200 billion rows data set. So it's a real big data use case. The company stocks all its data in Snowflake running on AWS. And in order to offer decent response time to its users, the company has built a data mart layer on top of Snowflake. And so what's interesting to note is that with time and a growing amount of clients, each of them collecting more and more data, this infrastructure has reached its limits. Because the data mart layer became very complicated to maintain. It required a lot of data engineering time. And at the end, it could take up to 10 seconds for a user to display a dashboard and refresh it. So at this point, the company had no other solution than upgrading the size of the Snowflake cluster, meaning raising the company analytics TCO if they wanted to improve the performance. And so this company has been thinking of ways to optimize the quality of its service without complexifying the data pipeline or multiplying the costs of its already expensive Snowflake cluster. And good news, implementing Indexima helped solve all of these challenges. Let's take a look at the new data architecture. First of all, as you can see, Indexima allowed the company to remove its data mart layer and to create live connections directly from the Snowflake star schema and Tableau. And this very simple thing helped them to reintroduce agility in their data pipeline. They had no more need to solicit their data engineers to maintain the data. On top of that, Indexima drastically improved the performance of the BI dashboards, bringing an amazing user experience. Only 50 milliseconds average response time on these 200 billion rows data set, which means 200 times performance improvement. And all of this for the same analytic TCO as before. So you can see it there were like a massive improvement on the analytic triangle of this company after implementing Indexima. Let's take a look at the second use case. The next use case comes from a Fortune 50 company that provides weather forecast data as a white label. And so they have launched a project whose goal is to help data scientists and data analysts to value the selling price to white label B2B customers. About 15 data scientists and data analysts explore and analyze terabytes of data on a daily basis. This company has decided to store its data in AWS S3 files and to ingest it into ClickCubes in order to be visualizing the data on ClickSense dashboards. The company has set up a process for ingesting data into ClickCubes using the AWS Athena data engine. And this classic process worked pretty well for small data sets. But it quickly showed its limits when the team wanted to extend its exploration of longer weather forecast time ranges. And the ingestion process for this 65 billion rows of data, which was around 15 terabytes, was taking more than 24 hours. And at the end, the user experience was terrible because the boards were simply not displayed, not responding, timeout. The ClickCubes could not handle so much data. So for them, the obvious solution was to increase the size of the Athena cluster and the Click server. But increasing the cost of the data platform by 5 would only have led to starting getting mediocre results. So that would have been a massive investment for non-significant improvement. So that's why they decided to implement Indexima. And the implementation of Indexima allowed them to overcome these limits and to address the needs of the end user. And this by simplifying the data pipeline. As you can see, there is no more Athena and ClickCubes in the process. Everything is live connected. And it actually made it possible to deliver a user experience that actually lives up to expectations. Boards now display in less than a second for them on tons of terabytes of data, and for the same cost of the data platform as before. So the goal of this company was really to do much more without increasing their budget, and I think it was a success. So as a conclusion, we saw during this webinar that solving the CTO's analytic dilemma is directly linked to the simplification and the automation of the data management tasks. The good news is it is now possible to do it thanks to innovative companies like Indexima, whose end goal is to automate the low added value tasks of the data engineer. The first to benefit from this type of data pipeline automation will be your end users. You'll be able to offer them an amazing quality of service and a real self-service analytic experience, while keeping your costs under control and also while relieving pressure from your data engineering teams. We are now officially on the road to automated data engineering. Thanks for watching, guys. And I think we'll take a few time to answer questions. You can go ahead. Juliette.
Thank you, Damien. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and we'll make sure to send you a video at the end of the presentation. I see that Ketia has a question for you, Damien. Hello, you've presented 2 use cases in the context of huge data volumes. What return on investment can a company that works with smaller data sets expect from Indexima?
That's a very good question. Thanks a lot for your question, Katia. To give you an idea, our smallest clients have around 10 million lines of data. They stock around 10 million lines of data. And so they work on these 10 million lines of data volume. But these are specific use cases. In general, we are able to help any company facing analytic performance issues, pipeline agility issues, or exploding BI analytic costs. And this is often the case starting from 50 to 100 million lines of data. So I would say this is the starting point where we can basically bring value and the same type of value than what we showed in the couple of slides before. Bring in an amazing user experience, less than 1 second response time. This is something that is done if you work on small data sets, and also automating all the data pipeline. So yeah, that's what we've presented on big data. Really is really can be translated into smaller clients. Yeah. I hope this answered your question, Inspector.
Thank you, Damien, for that clear answer. Checking if anyone else has any questions, but it seems like that's it for now. If you do have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us by email. And we want to thank you again for taking the time for participating and watching our webinar. And we wish you all a great week. And hopefully we'll talk and be in contact with all of you real soon.
Thanks a lot, Juliette. Thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Damien. Thank you.